A woman, determined to secure a future for her unborn child, used a blind date to force a kind-hearted man from the village to marry her. 5 months later, she gave birth to a healthy baby and, with good reason, asked the man to take responsibility. Out of a sense of duty, the man agreed and married her. However, married life wasn't as happy as Frank had imagined. His wife, Mandy, refused to take care of the home and dressed up every day, leaving early and returning late, often not coming home at all. This left Frank feeling confused and uncertain. He began to suspect that his wife wasn't as good as he thought. One night, Frank decided to follow her. He soon discovered the awful truth about what Mandy had been doing when she was out. When he confronted her, she didn't feel guilty at all. Instead, she showed indifference and even contempt. Frank, devastated, lost control of his emotions and pushed Mandy to the ground. Tragically, she hit her head and died on the spot. Before Frank could fully realize what had happened, a drop of water landed on Mandy's forehead, and he suddenly remembered the baby he had left in the bathtub. In a panic, he rushed upstairs, but it was too late. The baby had drowned. Frank was charged with both deaths and sentenced to 25 years in prison. 5 years later, Frank managed to escape during surgery. To avoid capture, he took a young boy hostage at a store and used him to escape. Frank forced the boy to take him to his home, threatening the boy's safety. The boy's mother, Adele, had no choice but to follow his orders. Although she suspected Frank was the fugitive on the news, she stayed silent, determined to protect her son, Henry. Even when they passed a police car, she stayed quiet because Henry was her only source of strength in this difficult time. Adele didn't know what Frank truly wanted, but she was willing to do anything to keep her son safe, even if it meant risking her own life. Frank, sensing her love for her child, decided not to make things difficult. When they arrived at Adele's home, he explained that he wasn't a violent man and that he just needed a place to rest. He promised to leave later that night. But to protect Adele and her son, Frank said he would need to pretend to tie her up with rope. Despite their fear, Adele and Henry had no choice but to agree. While tying her up, Frank was gentle and careful not to hurt her. To show his gratitude, Frank decided to cook lunch for them. Since Adele's hands were tied, he carefully fed her, blowing on each spoonful of food to cool it. As Adele ate, she found it hard to believe that this man, on the run from the law, could be so kind and caring. Henry, watching quietly, also began to doubt what he had heard on the news. That night, Frank untied Adele, planning to leave under the cover of darkness. But just then, police sirens sounded outside. With increased patrols in the area, Frank knew he couldn't leave just yet. The next morning, while Adele and Henry were asleep, Frank had already prepared breakfast. Henry no longer saw Frank as a threat. Instead, he began to admire him. Frank spoke to Henry with the authority of a father, teaching him how to stay safe in a dangerous situation. As they talked more, Henry shared his feelings with Frank. Adele, feeling the growing trust between them, offered to tie them up again, but Frank reassured her that it wasn't necessary. He explained that if he were arrested, the rope could prove their innocence. His calm demeanor made Adele feel more at ease. As Henry suggested, Adele tasted the breakfast Frank had prepared, savoring each bite. She was touched by the warmth he had shown. In gratitude for their kindness, Frank began helping with the household chores. He fixed things around the house, cleaned the roof, and even helped Henry repair Adele's car. Frank acted like a father figure, patiently teaching Henry how to protect his mother. Frank shared the real reason behind his escape. He wanted to return home to bury his parents, who had passed away in an accident. His words touched Henry, and for the first time, Frank felt like a father to him. They spent their days together, fixing things and even playing baseball. Frank taught Henry how to generate power during the game, just like a real father coaching his son. Adele watched these moments from a distance, her feelings toward Frank changing. Maybe he wasn't such a bad person after all. As time went on, Adele even mended Frank's pants, each stitch showing her care for him. Just as everything felt peaceful, there was a knock at the door. Frank quickly took Adele hostage, instructing Henry to handle the visitor. When Henry opened the door, it was their new neighbor, bringing peaches and warning them about a fugitive in the area. Despite the perfect opportunity to turn Frank in, Henry kept quiet and made an excuse to send the neighbor away. Frank relaxed, realizing Henry trusted him. He praised him for doing the right thing. Adele, watching from the side, began to feel the warmth between them grow. To thank them for their kindness, Frank taught Adele and Henry how to make a fruit pie with the peaches. It was a family recipe he had always cherished, and he shared it with them happily. In the kitchen, they moved together in harmony, enjoying each other's company. Frank gently guided Adele through the dough-making process, and every touch made her heart race with feelings she had buried for years. Henry, watching them, sensed the connection between his mother and Frank. As the pie baked, the sweet smell filled the house. Frank, growing more confident, placed his hand gently on Adele's waist. To his relief, she didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into him, feeling drawn to him. They shared a quiet moment, unable to stop themselves, but Frank knew staying would only bring danger to the family. As night fell, Frank decided it was time to leave, but when he saw the disappointment in Adele's eyes, he hesitated. He didn't want to be the cause of their pain, but he couldn't risk staying. In the end, he chose to stay with them for a while longer, though his heart was heavy with worry. Despite his doubts, Frank slowly began to accept his place in their family. He had already taken on the responsibilities of a husband and father, even though he couldn't be with Adele under the sun like a normal family. In their free time, they found comfort in ballroom dancing, silently expressing their love and care for one another. But Frank's fugitive status still hung over them. One afternoon, their neighbor Evelyn rushed in, asking Adele to look after her son Barry. Frank played baseball with the boys, making the most of their time together. The sound of their laughter warmed the house, and Adele smiled for the first time in a long while. That evening, however, as Evelyn came to pick up Barry, a news report about Frank appeared on TV. Barry, recognizing Frank from earlier, screamed, but Evelyn didn't understand. She thought Barry just wanted to keep watching TV. The tension in the room was broken when Evelyn slapped him, returning the moment to calm. Despite the close call, Frank knew his time was running out. He and Adele began to talk about leaving together. But before they could escape, Adele had to make sure Frank could accept her past. She shared painful memories of how her first baby had died and how her ex-husband had left her. It had been a hard time, but she had found strength in her son. Frank listened to her, and with his gentle words, he reassured her that he would accept her past. This gave Adele hope. Together, they began to plan their escape, but Henry overheard everything. The next day, he went to the library, looking for books to help them escape safely. At the library, Henry met Eleanor, a girl who understood the pain he felt. They talked about their family struggles, and Henry shared his feelings about his mother and Frank. Eleanor promised not to tell anyone, and Henry felt a connection to her. Later that day, Henry saw his mother and Frank dancing, looking happy. Overjoyed, Adele confessed to Henry that she wasn't the cold person everyone thought she was. In the end, they decided to leave together. But before they could go, Henry wanted to say goodbye to Eleanor. During their conversation, he accidentally revealed the truth about his mother and Frank. Eleanor promised to keep their secret and sealed it with a kiss. Henry then wrote a farewell letter to his biological father, expressing only acceptance and hope for the future. He slipped it into the mailbox and felt a sense of peace. But on his way home, a police officer stopped him. The officer insisted on giving Henry a ride, causing Adele to worry when she saw her son stepping out of the car. Fortunately, it was just a misunderstanding. Back at home, Frank knew their time was running out. He asked Adele to withdraw money from the bank, but when they arrived, the staff grew suspicious. Adele became nervous, but Henry remembered Frank's advice to speak the truth in a way that misleads. His answer cleared all doubts. Back at the house, Evelyn came in, but Frank convinced her that he was a repairman, easing her suspicions. However, Frank knew they couldn't stay long. When the police sirens sounded again, he decided it was time to leave. Adele urged him to go, but Frank couldn't leave them behind. He tied Adele up again, bidding her a soft goodbye before disappearing into the night. Frank was soon caught and given an additional 10 years in prison. Adele fought for his freedom, but her efforts were in vain. Years passed, and Henry thrived. He used the lessons Frank had taught him to succeed. Frank's release date was near, and Henry received a letter from him, promising never to hurt Adele again. If fate allowed, he hoped to meet her once more. Adele had waited for 20 years, hoping Frank would come back to her. Their love never faded, and now they would be reunited at last. Their long wait was over, and they were finally together.